Hello, everyone. Welcome. I hope everybody's feeling comfortable and safe in this space and also online. Welcome to the Augmented Europe Artathon and also the Symposium today. We will be online and also here in presence from 1:15 until 4:30. So just so you know, my name is Carolina. I will be hosting today together with Susa. She's the Director of Public Art Lab. And we have some people connected online. So just so you know, so we have a hybrid event. Online, we have around 100 participants. So I will just ask for the participants to change their names to like your name, your last name, and the country you are at right now. I will also ask you to keep the mic muted so we don't have any interference during the event. And if you have any questions, who is online, please write in the chat because we have Vivi in the chat replying all the time. And we have Ping also controlling the Zoom and the facilitators online that we are 4 facilitators and me and Susa. And now I will invite Susa to say some few words about the event and welcome you all. So thank you.
Carolina, thank you very much. Yes, hello everybody, just here. I'm Susa. I'm co-founding director of Public Art Lab. And today it's the pleasure that we host the Artathon. Our topic of the Artathon is nature data narratives, how urban digital arts can contribute to climate engagement. Yes, first of all, I want to thank very much Sabine and the Bauhaus-Universität Weimar. We are here in present with lovely students from the Bauhaus-University. And I also want to say hello to our online participants and subscribers. I think there are around, I don't have it exactly, but I think there were around 120 who subscribed for the program. And yes, today we will have for the first hour from 1:30 to 2:30, we will have a symposium with excellent speakers with whom we will dive deeper into this whole topic about what urban media art can do for climate engagement and have a look at their artistic practices of climate action. And afterwards, there is the Artathon, which is a kind of workshop format all together with you, where we co-create to certain sub-themes, certain solutions and ideas. For these ideas, you can hand in and you can also receive an award. So first of all, let me introduce you to our partners. We have the Augmented Europe program and the Artathons. They are co-developed together with our European partners who are right now in the moment in Milan. There is our project lead, Meet Digital Culture Center. I want to say hello to Thelma and to Rosanna, who will be online with us and facilitate the Milan group. Then I want to say hello to Riga RIXC Center for Art and Science, Rasa Smite, the director. She will be one of our speakers, and we have also Liva and her team with us as moderators for the Artathons. And our partner in Barcelona, Protenda, Institute for Art and Culture is with us with their online community. And last but not least, Lasnia, Center for Contemporary Art in Gdansk in Poland, are also with us. So in presence here in Weimar, together with you and with our online community in these European cities of Milan, Gdansk, Barcelona, Riga, and yes, and here. So first, let me introduce you shortly into this idea of Augmented Europe. Augmented Europe is the overall project. We already started with Augmented Europe in 2020 during the pandemic time. And at that time, we wanted to reach out, yes, to young, digitally native born people who we would like to engage in the values and the visions of Europe, how we all together can shape a better future. And for this, we developed these Artathons and with co-facilitators who are facing the challenges of Europe today. So each Artathon is dedicated to a certain topic, either it is social inclusion and migration, or connecting people and places, job opportunities, economic, creative economies, and many other challenging questions. Today, we have the climate engagement topic. And now, after 3 years, we have built on a community of 1,500 active participants and facilitators. And yes, it's still a hybrid format for us, being online and presence at the same time, a learning journey. And this all would not have been possible without the support of the European Union. Augmented Europe projects have been, on one hand, supported by the Curated Europe program, but also, and especially this Artathon, is supported by the SERV program, Citizen, Equality, Rights and Values. And it's more than a pleasure for us today to have with us our European project manager, Maud Catio. And I hope Maud Catio is now online, and we can give her the stage and say a couple of words about the program. Thank you very much, Maud.
Hello, good morning. Do you hear me? Good afternoon, sorry. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. We can hear you very well, at least here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. May I share a short presentation or not? Or I can do it without sharing anything. So thank you very much for giving me the floor. So as Susa mentioned, I am Maud Catio. I'm the project officer for the EU institution EACEA, European Education and Culture Executive Agency, which is basically an EU organization responsible for funding projects in the field of education, sport, volunteering, through the well-known EU program Erasmus+, culture and audiovisual as well with Creative Europe, and citizenship, with the program CHERV, as it had been mentioned by Susa just a few seconds ago. So CHERV is Citizen, Equality, Right and Value, and this program, the main aim of the program is to promote citizenship engagement at EU level. So, as it has been mentioned, HOGE has been selected among 168 proposals. So, congratulations for the organization and the member of the consortium, meaning that it benefits from EU grant to support the implementation of the activity, such as the hackathons that have already implemented in Milan and Barcelona, if I'm not wrong. So, and I know that I'm not, because I attended. So CHERV support civil society organization to promote right and value, as already mentioned, through 4 main funds. One of these, I would not go in detail because I don't have the opportunity to share slide, but one of the fund is the Chief Action Program, dedicated really to support city organization focus on the citizen engagement and the participation in democratic life at EU level, sorry. And the project are really encouraged to implementation activity, whatever the nature of the activity, various activity, to strengthen the democratic participation of citizens through a wide range of actions, such as conference, workshop, or activities such as more concrete activities such as hackathon and so on. And so that's it for the Chief and CHERV program. Of course, I'm very happy to meet you virtually and to hear your ideas and opinion about the topic today. It's always very inspiring for us to hear from your experience, your idea, opinion, your exchange, and your fruitful discussion. You will create, I'm very sure, a very a very fruitful and relevant synergy this afternoon by exploring new ways of understanding, integrating, and exploring how digital arts, placemaking, artivism can have an impact on climate change. Unfortunately, I will be with you only for 1 hour because I have to attend another meeting later on, but I'm really look forward to hear, if it's possible, if it's recorded, or read your ideas and the outcome of this discussion. I wish you a very pleasant afternoon today. Thank you very much. And of course, if you have any questions, I'm available to answer a few questions, but I'm not sure that we will have time for that.
Susa, we cannot hear you.
That you say it?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, good. So from the very beginning, you couldn't hear me, I guess. Yeah, so I would like to officially open the symposium of our Artathon Nature Data Narratives. And this symposium is co-hosted with the MediaArchitecture Biennial, who, yes, opens now online their symposium. And then later, next weekend, we have with us the artistic director, Dave Colangelo. Dave Colangelo, he is also assistant professor at the Creative School for Toronto Metropolitan University. And just let's give Dave a short stage for introducing the program of the MediaArchitecture Biennial. And then, of course, I will come back to you and introduce our speakers. The MediaArchitecture Biennial is a long-term partner of us. We know it from the very beginning. And I think exactly for this whole topic, what urban digital arts can do for climate engagement, yes, placemaking and especially public space. These are our future markets and our future forums where we can catalyze this whole discussion around climate action. And yes, so I want to also give Sabine the possibility to say hello to Dave. Please, Sabine, I think you wanted to say a welcome word. Sabine Zierold is coordinating here the MediaArchitecture program at the Bauhaus-Universität Weimar, who cooperates since a long time with the MediaArchitecture Biennial. So just some words from Sabine, and then we come to Dave.
Dear Susa, thank you very much for your introduction, and I'm very happy to welcome you all here at Bauhaus University, and as well the online or virtual community, and very special warm regards to the MediaArchitecture Committee. I am very happy that we can participate today with our students here from Bauhaus University in the online symposium of the MediaArchitecture Biennial 23. And I am as well very glad about the student award nominees from MediaArchitecture study program and other programs as well. I am very much looking forward to the online symposium and the Artathon event, and I wish you very interesting discussions. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to say thank you to Susa and Sabine and her team for connecting with the MediaArchitecture Biennale once again. Susa has been a great collaborator over the years with so many amazing projects and initiatives that have augmented our knowledge, skills, and attitudes about how to creatively and critically engage communities, public spaces, and technology. And it's great to see that continuing here. So I'd like to say hello to the Augmented Europe audience, Public Art Lab, Bauhaus-Universität Weimar, and welcome to our MAB 23 audience. So this is the first session of our event, which will continue on today and tomorrow online, and 3 days in person in Toronto. So hope to see more of you throughout the day today and tomorrow online, and hopefully some of you are coming to Toronto next week. So what a great way to start with an incredible group of speakers today. And I think I'll leave it at that. So thank you very much and enjoy the session.
I hope the sound is on now and I can continue. So just some words about our topic, nature data narratives. It refers to the practice of using data, collecting data to tell stories about the natural environment and the natural world. So we depart actually from nature and from the habitats as a physical environment. With the nature data narratives, we had already encouraged people to explore, yes, with online excursions and observations to go into the nature and of course explore the impact of climate change, like the loss of diversity, the melting of the glaciers, the deforestation, and many, many other challenging and really changing ecosystems. So how can we make this invisible visible and connect them to the public virtual realities to create awareness, empathy, and change? Today, we have invited a fantastic panel of speakers who are all experienced in that field, and each of the speakers will open a certain perspective. On one hand, we have the media artists, Rasa, Smite, and Refik Anadol with us, who will share their artistic practices of data generation and of creating empathy through their large-scale media works. And on the other hand, we have also Sabine Niederer with us, who is a professor for visual methodologies and who will share her, yes, digital methods, especially related to climate issues. And we have our first speaker now, Ilana Altman. Ilana Altman, she is the executive director of the Bentway in Toronto. Before I continue, I just wanted to say, all the speakers, they will receive a co-host and immediately can share their screen and make their presentation. So when I come now to Ilana Altman, Ilana, I hope you already received this link, and we are very much honored that you join us today, because as executive director of the Bentway in Toronto, I think you run one of the most outstanding and yes, longest outdoor galleries worldwide. The Bentway is underneath the Gardiner Expressway, and it's 1.57 kilometers long. So under this highway, Ilana and her team and the city of Toronto, they changed empty spaces into a vibrant program. And Ilana will share today her experience of how to reach a really large physical audience. And she will present us some of her, yes, most exciting projects who are a showcase for climate engagement. So Ilana, I hope you received the co-host, and I hope you are ready to let us more about the Bentway and your program.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation to participate, Susa, and for the opportunity to join this incredible conversation. I hope everybody can hear me. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. All right.
So we can hear you, yes. And we can see the screen.
I'm just going to see if I can make this full screen. There we go. Okay. Thank you so much for the introduction, Susa. As Susa mentioned, I'm the co-executive director of the Bentway in Toronto, and we are both a public space and a programming platform that is located underneath an active highway that cuts across the city's downtown core. I want to acknowledge that we operate on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat people, and we recognize Toronto as now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Given that I know many of you are not familiar with the Bentway and have yet to visit Toronto, I thought I would start by providing a bit of context about the project. And the fact that we are intimately linked to this highway, the Gardiner Expressway, which, as I said, cuts across Toronto's downtown core. Toronto's story is not different, unfortunately, from many different North American cities. In the post-war era, as they prioritized suburban expansion, there was a need to think about new mobility structures to help to connect the downtown core to these burgeoning outer regions. And at the time, that translated into expressway and highway construction. The Gardiner Expressway is a structure that follows that precedent and is very much a structure that is representative of the values of its time. It was built in a single purpose way. It was built to be monumental in size and scale, and it was built in a very car-centric way. And as much as we look at this today and recognize that this is not the values that Toronto holds dear or the identity that Toronto wants to project to the world, it's easy to forget that the city was a very different place at the time of the highway's construction. Our waterfront, again, like many North American cities, was highly industrial. There was a lot of railway construction that was taking place across the waterfront, so much so that the shoreline of the city of Toronto was extended quite considerably, and the area where the Gardiner was built is actually all infill. The city expanded its landmass considerably to the south. So at the time that they were looking for a place to create a new highway, the waterfront was the path of least resistance. And though it still resulted in displacement and disconnected communities, there was an ease by which this project happened and came to fruition that is somewhat impossible to imagine today. But fast forward 60 years, Toronto and its waterfront is a very different place. Almost as soon as the highway was built, the waterfront industry began to leave the waterfront, and the waterfront gave way to new uses. It has now become amongst the densest residential communities across the city. Toronto has seen a massive construction boom over the last quarter century and has resulted in many different vertical, highly dense communities across the waterfront where people are now making their home. That has given way to new entertainment uses across the waterfront and a desperate need for social services to keep pace with the growing development. Today, more than 200 people reside next door to the Gardiner. And so the Bentway's position is that it is no longer acceptable in a city like Toronto and with a waterfront that's growing in the way that it has for this structure to still only serve one purpose. And we're really asking, how does the city continue to meet its mobility needs, but also meet the needs of this growing community? We've posited that we can work towards hybrid solutions, and that as all of our cities grow and change, we have to be creative about the ways in which we find public space in the city and the way that that works to inspire its residents. And so we have built to date about 1 kilometer of public space underneath this active highway, which serves many different purposes throughout the year. We are open 365 days a year. We have numerous amenities, including the skate trail that is featured here, where you have the ability to skate and circle the Gardiner Bents. We host a variety of different public programs throughout the year, and we are a new destination for public art presentation within the city. We really believe that fundamentally our mission is about igniting the urban imagination. Toronto is at a particularly difficult point in its trajectory as we are wrestling with the growth that we have seen and the ways in which the city has not kept pace and is not serving its residents well. And I would say that in many ways, the city has become more pessimistic in the last decade than I've ever seen it before. We really believe that the creative movement that we're leading to reimagine the possibilities, not only of the Gardiner Expressway, but of the city more generally and of its public space, can help to inject the city with the imagination that it so desperately needs. And we believe that our creative partners, the artists and designers that we work with, are absolutely central to that mission. I've mentioned that we work across a number of different platforms in a number of different ways. We host recreational, educational, and cultural programming throughout the year. And despite the fact that we do many different things, our programming approach remains consistent. We're always positioning the people who come to the Bentway as active participants rather than passive viewers or passive listeners. We really want to ensure that those who are visiting the site, they're not just subjects, but they're actively participating in the creation of the space and in the programming that we offer. We believe that creative voices are absolutely essential to understanding our city. We believe that artists are city builders and that they shouldn't come at the end of a city building process, but need to be centered at the very beginning. We have a lot to learn from artists and designers about the city that we want, the city that we can be, and how we achieve that. We believe in co-creation with a broad range of communities, including other institutional partners, the public, and our city partners. And lastly, and I think most importantly for this conversation, we believe in the power of our work to be catalytic. Even though we present temporary public art and offer temporary programming, our site is always changing. We believe that the projects that we present have long-standing impact after they have come to a close, and that's really what I wanted to center my discussion on today. I think that as we think about the importance of climate engagement, it's no single project that's going to catalyze a community. It's no single project that is going to solve the issues ahead of us. But the more that we can inspire, the more that we can catalyze new conversations, the more that we can catalyze action, the better chance that we have to build new resilient cities. So one such project that was a great example of this and an early project that we presented was Waterlicht by Don Rusgaard, which we presented in 2018. A beautiful multimedia piece that completely transformed the kilometer of space underneath the Gardiner into a virtual flood. And as I mentioned to you, the site that the Bentway was built on was once the waterfront itself. So Waterlicht was an opportunity to both return the site to its original condition as the shoreline of the city of Toronto, but I think more importantly, draw attention to our ongoing relationship to the lake, our responsibility to it, and to make Torontonians very aware of the threats of climate change. I will say that this project was supported by numerous partnerships, including partnerships with Toronto Metropolitan University, where we worked with students to help train them to be on site to answer questions about the lake and our relationship to it and the risks of climate change. We worked with wonderful advocacy organizations like Swim, Drink, Fish. But what was really incredible about seeing this project take place on site was the visceral nature of the experience. People came to the site, 30,000 of them across 3 nights, and were absolutely mesmerized by the piece. And I think more so than any presentation, any sort of didactic explanation of the threats of climate change, people really understood the power of the water by experiencing this work. I think what's also remarkable about a project like this, which is a touring project and which has traveled the world, is that there is a way to make it relevant to the sites that it comes to, even though it is a universal story in many ways. And for Waterlicht, Rusgaard's team had developed a radio program where they invited local people, they invited local people to contribute stories about the importance of the water in our particular region. And in this case, that included stories from Indigenous knowledge keepers, from former harbor masters, and from long distance swimmers. And this is still a record of the piece that you can listen to and really understand its power. I also wanted to talk a little bit about our current season, which opened just a couple weeks ago, which is called Beyond Concrete. And it's a season where we have challenged our artistic partners to really explore the broader ecosystem of the Gardiner Expressway. Unfortunately, Toronto, despite the efforts of the Bentway, Toronto is still having a very binary discussion about the virtues and values of the Gardiner Expressway. It tends to default to whether it stays or whether it goes as a structure. And it tends to really focus on a recognition of its concrete, of its presence, of its mobility function. But what we've come to learn working underneath the Gardiner Expressway is there's a vibrant ecosystem that exists that goes far beyond the concrete. Sometimes that exists because of the concrete, and sometimes that exists in spite of it. It includes resilient flora and fauna, animals and vegetation that have made home there for a long time, incredible forces and elements like wind and salt. And so through the artistic projects that we're presenting this season, we've been able to uncover that and to really explore the interdependent relationships between the various facets of this corridor. One such project is not a media project, but I thought it was worth showcasing the many different ways that we work, is by an artist, a Manila-based artist, Leroy New. Balete Baluta Batuka is a beautiful project, a woven structure that really helps us to unpack the complicated nature of waste and wildlife on our site. He's woven this incredible bamboo structure that actually knits itself around the Gardiner Expressway almost in a parasitic way, and has integrated recycled plastics that have been sourced locally. Because the infill that I refer to that makes up the land where we now work was actually once all essentially garbage that was dumped into the lake. And so we're trying to unpack that conversation and make it more visible to those who are visiting our site. Equally, we hosted a beautiful opening performance by the Brazilian choreographer Clarice Lima, another touring work by the name of Woods, where we were able to engage 40 local participants who held headstands in a group formation to really draw attention to the former forestation of the site and the ways in which urban development has resulted in deforestation, both across the area where we work and across the world. It was an incredibly intimate piece, a beautiful durational performance that once again helped to catalyze people's imagination about what was and what we want our city to be. And then lastly, from the season, I wanted to highlight a work by Public Visualization Studio, a wonderful collective that is made up of Dave Colangelo, who just introduced to, Patricia Davila, Emily Men, and Hector Centeno Garcia. We've been really fortunate to work with Public Visualization Studio on a number of projects throughout their, across our site over the years. And they are wonderful partners for us because they are always working to explore the relationship between space and interaction and public data and media. But I think that this project in particular may have been the greatest challenge that they've taken on in the many works that they've done with us, because what we ask them to respond to is, in many ways, the Bentway's most powerful force, but its most invisible force, and that is the wind. And they've met that challenge in an incredible way with a brilliant piece called Atmospheres, where they've helped to manifest the wind both visually and through video work and sound work. You'll see that the work consists of a number of soft sculptures that are hanging across the site that helps people to actually see the force of the wind as it's moving through the site. But the movement of the soft sculptures is monitored and tracked, and that data is captured, translated, and mixed with historical data to tell a much broader picture about the site's relationship to the wind over time. And that's translated into brilliant video work and live and responsive audio work inside the shipping container that's featured here, so that people have a chance to actually separate themselves from the immediate force of the wind to reflect on its larger impact on the city and on this space. And I think ultimately this project is not just about understanding the the microclimate of the site, but more importantly, how we use that understanding to better position ourselves to design resilient spaces going forward. So I encourage you all to visit the Atmospheres microsite that you can link through the Bentway site to find out more about this project. Oh, sorry. Lastly, I just want to end by saying that all of the work that we're doing is not solely in the interest of animating the Bentway Phase 1 site, which you can see featured here. Our work is really just beginning across the Gardner Expressway. The Gardner is much bigger than the kilometer of space that we've built to date, and it is the central spine that is so critical in terms of the access to our waterfront and as a connection point between so many different civic assets and transportation nodes across the city. We have begun to pilot sustainable strategies through the landscapes that we have built, really thinking about the relationship of the highway to the city, how we can integrate new stormwater features, new landscape features to ensure that we are actually transforming what is quite a wasteful structure into a new productive part of our landscape, and a space that is not just a space to convene or a space to celebrate, but actually a space that is helping our city to become more responsive and more resilient in the face of climate change. But as I said, that work is just beginning. And so the learnings that we gain from the projects and the partners that we work from are actually being implemented and embedded in future strategies and future spaces. What we learn about the wind through atmospheres is absolutely a design tool as we start to think about how to expand upon the Bentway Phase 1 site, and ultimately to create a corridor across the Gardner that becomes the central creative and connective and resilient spine of the city of Toronto. I mean, that's really the goal, to transform, in many ways, the guiltiest and most controversial structure into the city into a point of pride for Torontonians. And so I will leave it there.
Yes, thank you very much, Ilana, for these fantastic projects and sharing all, yes, your experience. In terms of time, I would just suggest that we collect all the questions in the chat and we ask them by the end. Yes, we will cluster them, and none of your questions will get lost, but we just ask them later. Thanks a lot. Now we come to our next 10-minute input talk of Sabine Niederer. Sabine Niederer, as I mentioned already, she is professor for visual methodologies of the University of Applied Sciences in Amsterdam. And Sabine, she also has in her research work a focus on climate-related works. And we are now giving the stage to Sabine and want to welcome you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Susa and the other organizers, for inviting me. Can you hear me well? Just nod, then I know. Yes, I think so. I'm going to try to share my screen. Here. Let's see. Oh, geez. I can share just this. Can you see my presentation? I can see only Dave. So Dave, if you could nod, if you can see my presentation, then I know it's all good.
We can see the presentation very well.
Thank you. Yeah, so let me very briefly introduce myself. Susa already mentioned I'm professor of visual methodologies at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. I'm also the program coordinator of ARIAS, and that's a platform for artistic research based in Amsterdam. At the Visual Methodologies Collective, we're a group of, interdisciplinary research group, people from many different academic disciplines and artistic and design disciplines are united to develop and test participatory visual and digital methods for social and cultural research. As Susa mentioned, we have done quite a bit of climate-related work, and I think until we, preceding the collective, we were already working a lot on the topic by studying the climate change debate and also climate change imaginaries as they were shared in social media mostly and other places online. And it was basically this book by Amitav Ghosh that we felt encouraged by to also start engaging with the topic in more artistic and creative ways. Some of you might know this book. It's a thin book, but quite evocative in the sense that it really encourages people, especially those who create in whatever form or medium that is, to pay attention to the climate crisis in their work, in your work. And he called the climate crisis also a crisis of the imagination, and really paints a picture of people looking back later in the future at our day and age and seeing so little art and cultural products relating to or discussing the climate crisis, and how they would be really, he sort of imagines how they would be really disappointed in us, and thinking this was the day and the age of the great derangement of a whole generation in denial, basically. Now, I do think a lot has changed since 2016 in terms of attention, and also artistic attention and cultural attention to the issue of climate change. Well, maybe this panel is an illustration of that, but definitely it was empowering to us at the time to think, okay, let's not only do academic research, but also try to really contribute to this topic in other, maybe more engaging ways. So we started developing the Climate Futures program to develop and explore new modes of engagement with the issue. And a lot of it is about developing, conducting artistic research in collaborative experiments. And I want to show you sort of the first project we did, which is all gone. And not a very uplifting title, but I'll explain later where that came from. And then if I have time, say something about current projects, or at least point you to them in case you're interested. So where did this all begin? We started with a project that looked at existing cultural collections, in this case, climate fiction books, to start developing our own additions to these future imaginaries. And we wanted to collaborate with AI. Of course, this is now with ChatGPT a huge hype. This was an earlier version. We were working a bit earlier in 2019 and 2020. So we had to work with GPT-2, which was different, meant we had to train an algorithm ourselves. Yeah, the reason to work with AI at the time was to really try to co-author with a machine that could maybe surprise us or expand our own, of course, limited imagination of possible futures with a changing climate. Now, we went back to a project we had done earlier, already in 2013, which was a study of climate fiction novels, looking at, okay, how is this topic of the future, a future affected by climate change, actually discussed and situated and described in climate fiction, CLI-FI, so climate science fiction. And we took the same data set, which was at the time the 27 the best-selling climate fiction books, according to Amazon at the time. And we trained GPT-2 with those novels, so on the basis of that text. And then we started prompting. Many of you will have tried prompting by now with generative AI, basically making sure it starts talking or it starts writing a text in this case. So with ChatGPT, you can, of course, just ask a question. With GPT-2, it's a little bit different. You sort of start a story and then it begins to elaborate on that, much like your phone might suggest how, when you start typing in your phone a text message, it will suggest the word that it thinks you want to write. And it's that same kind of technology that is used in GPT-2. We started prompting and a lot, it was difficult, but in the end we decided on entering a date from the future, and that worked. So we started writing stories with this trained algorithm and developed these diary entries. So the first series of stories we narrated and turned into a podcast. We experimented also with a synthetic voice, which we did at the time and later thought it was maybe a little bit distracting, because you just keep thinking how good this synthetic voice is, and maybe, yeah, it distracts a bit from the substance. So for the second version, we did a second series of stories. We actually worked with a climate fiction author to also edit the texts and narrate them in another podcast called All Gone. All Gone is the title story of one of the stories that we made. Now, the idea was then to think about, okay, we have these stories that we found very interesting because they definitely painted different pictures, different narratives. And we thought, okay, how can we make this engaging? And we went to look at older tarot decks. Actually, the one that I show here is not so old. It's a Madrid Bus deck. It's a round tarot deck. Not so much to think of the tarot as a way of future fortune telling. That's the word I'm looking for, but more as a way to reflect. So looking at images and thinking about your own situation, and in this case, your own situation with respect to nature. So we decided to, on the basis of the texts, highlight certain elements that we found were maybe engaging or telling, something that could actually also translate to an image, and then started compiling collages with software that would create the images with, like DALL-E or Midjourney. Many people use that now. These are also earlier versions where you just take a text and it creates one, and manually we created these collages and then took out the text. So we had then our set of tarot cards, each with an accompanying backstory. That was the first pilot we did, and we created the deck. People can print them themselves. You can find it still on our website. Print them, and there's a way of using or sort of scenarios of use, like how you can use it to reflect on your position within a changing climate, or use it as a conversational tool with others. We presented them in an exhibition, and it has also led to some derivative works, like there's a group, a theater group called Zixira, who is translating one of the images into a theater performance that will be a dance film in the end, and and other forms and spin-offs. There's an interview about this project also online. So this was a first iteration, and then we thought, okay, how do we develop this idea of engaging with climate change, and what are we actually missing in the current discussions on climate change? What are we trying to do here? And we decided to team up with two other research groups at two different art schools here in Amsterdam, and focus on create artistic research studios. So invite in artists and explore with them three perspectives that we felt were underdeveloped, at least in what we found on climate change discussions in more mainstream settings. And that's material inquiry, indigenous and global south, and interspecies. I'll try to briefly highlight what I mean about when I talk about this, or show you a little bit of a sneak preview, because this is a project that we're currently working on. And we have partners that include, for the material research studio, we have the architecture program and the textile program of the Gerrit Rietveld Academy, so that's the art school in Amsterdam. And external partners, we have the school that runs the Global South and Indigenous Perspective Studio, works with partners also in Suriname, Paramaribo, because I'm talking about climate futures, but of course, sea level rise that we're focusing on in this project is also a present-day reality in many places of the world, and definitely in Suriname, that's the case. And our group heads the artistic research studio on interspecies imaginaries, where we work with cultural partners that have a collection, an audiovisual collection. So in this case, we work with the Institute for Sound and Vision, who have a huge collection of all the public broadcasts that have been made in the Netherlands. And together with them, we made a special collection, or we are compiling special collections on water and the role of water in the Netherlands, which of course is a difficult topic because we are below sea level. A few examples for the material inquiry studio. We are working with an artist called Müge Yilmaz, and she will be exploring the topic of salinization, so becoming salt of soil, and the impact of that on architecture and ecology as one of the immediate consequences of sea level rise and ground subsidence, which is of course also a big issue, is saline water entering flows of sweet water and soil. So she will be exploring this reality of salinization, and also thinking about possible futures there, like biosaline farming and aquaculture that are already being practiced in parts of the world and are being experimented with, but trying to really think about, okay, what would it mean if that would be our future? The Indigenous and Global South studio is working, among other artists, with Amanda Pina. And here, as I said, that question is also like, who gets to imagine the future and to whom is it already a present situation? And Amanda Pina has made a beautiful initiative called the School of Mountains and Water, where she also invites people in to imagine, imagine the change, very much connected and rooted to particular mountains that are, being excavated for commercial purposes. And another example that is happening right now is a collaboration between Children's Museum in Paramaribo and a group of school students here in Amsterdam, where they are taking pictures of the role and position of water in the city and exhibiting them together. And that will lead to both a spoken word piece and a theater performance. And then lastly, the Interspecies Imaginaries studio. Here you see a few examples of what a participatory approach to a cultural collection could look like. Here you see people in a setting in Amsterdam and one in Rome last month at a conference were invited to finish an archival image of water in the city and really finish it by thinking about, okay, what would this look like in the future affected by sea level rise? And first they did this manually, and then they tried to prompt an algorithm to outpaint, so to really finish up and add to the image using AI. And another artist working in the interspecies group is Carlo De Gaetano. And here the topic is really to think about how can we perceive water as not only a threat or something we collect from, protect us from, harvest from, but really thinking about, are there other ways of other relationships imaginable to more than human life in the ocean? And here you see a sneak preview of what he's working on. I can point you to a zine that we have online that bundles. I have it here too, which is much nicer, of course, but we do have it in an issue online. And I'm going to wrap up here for the sake of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sabine. Very fantastic. Yes, visual storytelling methodologies, and also interesting how you included AI in your projects. Yes, please, write in your questions. We will have a look at them at the end. Also, Sabine, if you would like to share some of the projects in the chat, some links, you are more than welcome to do this. Now we have two more speakers. I hand on as next speaker to Rasa Smite. Rasa Smite from RIXC Center is a media artist, and yes, she is working in that field of renewable futures and biodiversity for a very long time, together with Art+Science, and they run the RIXC Center and a lot of exhibitions worldwide. Her recent project, Atmospheric Forest, played a very big role and gave us a big impact for our theme, Nature Data Narratives. So I want to welcome Rasa to share her projects with us. Thanks a lot.
Okay, hello. Hello. Thank you so much, Susa, for inviting me. So thank you, everybody. I'm really happy to be together with great speakers in this panel and also with this amazing audience. Many of you are of new generation, because as you see, we are discussing now here the topics which are big challenges today, but might be even bigger for the future. So I will now share the screen. Okay. Okay. Oh, good. So already for, I have been working together about, I would like to share some experiences of my, and findings also of my practice and my research together with Art+Science and RIXC in Riga, together with also my research colleagues from research team of Ecodata and Plants Intelligences in Basel, and also my colleagues here from Art Research Lab in Bauhaus-Universität. So because every time, okay. Yeah. I think we are at the moment also facing quite a big change. So what we also try to do in our practice, we would like to show different new experiences through using different, like also including immersive media. But so because from one side, climate change and biodiversity laws at the moment definitely are reaching a tipping point from which there might be not turning back. So this, in a way, we are kind of facing, comparing to what Bruno Latour was saying in critical zones together with Peter Weibel, the project, their both last project during the past 2 years. So that actually these are big changes when the scientific perspective of the planet, of our own home, is changing. So this is also kind of, we have the feeling that we are under attack. Yeah, so this is definitely one of the points, and this time we might facing actually this bigger change, because if we just think a little bit, so that this tiny layer around the planet Earth, just hardly 100 kilometers up and down, is what is sustaining all life on our planet. So with atmospheric forest, we visualize these complex relations between the forest ecosystem, climate change, and the atmosphere. And also because to show this bigger picture using this contemporary media, also like virtual reality or the data visualization, sonification and interpretation, and using this immersion particularly, so when you can experience and navigate through different environments. So this was one of our for long thought ideas, so how we maybe could, as artists, could more meaningfully to contribute also to these environmental challenges. So the project, which I'm very briefly will introduce because it has quite a unique background, it is a 3-year research on Finwald, an ancient Swiss alpine forest, which is dying out because of drought and climate. And here the scientists are working already for the decades. So they are asking what will be the future of our projects, and that there is definitely a need for this climate laboratory, which they do. So they have been irrigating certain fields in this forest, artificially pouring some water and seeing how it would be if it would be following the natural patterns before last like maybe 20, 30 years, and how rapidly changes are happening now when more and more drought is coming to this area. So this is where I had this chance to go into many field trips and think about it and meet scientists. And one of my field trips, like I met a scientist who was doing also the volatile emission research. So what I realized that overall the trees are breathing. They are not only oxygen producing machines, so they are also emitting a lot of gases out there, not only producing oxygen, but also even in the nights they are releasing CO2. And particularly my interest was where these volatile organic compounds, which we are recognizing as a habitual scent of the forest when we walk. So I didn't know about this much. So I also wanted to touch myself before working with the data and digital technologies. I just did also some experiments like do-it-yourself colophonium and turpentine. But I realized even in going into more depth and talking with the scientists, so they also say they don't know themselves all this scale, actually, how these large ecosystems are emitting, how they are creating the aerosols, how they are participating into cloud creations, and at which big scale, how big could be this scale when they are really also affecting the climate, to good or to bad. That's the question. This they currently are researching, and then they say that it's very complex. And so this was the young visiting scientist in the Swiss alpine forest whom I met, Kaisa Rissanen. So she provided me with the data, which we later visualized and created this atmospheric forest. Yeah, so there's this virtual reality in which you can travel through this virtual forest, which consists of these two elements. One is this scanned structure of LiDAR scanned 360 environment, and also the visualized processes into this forest. So, for example, there are this resin pressure, which is generated by trees who are really genius in chemistry, how they are creating from almost nothing, just air and water coming through the soil, how they create this resin, how this resin emits through the tree barks, and how it goes into the atmosphere. So altogether, this experience is in about almost 17 minutes with 5 different scenes. One of them is just the data sets. Yeah. So, and virtual reality was the primary, but because of COVID, so it was created 2 years ago. We have many versions of it. So too big for like cinema version, single channel, and two channels for more immersive projection. And now finally, we are already on the next stage to continue. So we are a great team already. So who is now working on more atmospheric forests, yeah, really becoming aware of not only like pine trees in Europe, which are dying out more in the south and more, but also about understanding the bigger scale of importance of Amazon, which is getting lost. And also we continue to our collaboration with radio astronomers, which we've started 20 years ago, also here in Latvia. So we are trying to encourage also these radio astronomers to collaborate with space or Earth scientists and to put their data sets together and to see if there is any interesting correlations. So this newest work is this dynamic visualization of exploring patterns, how weather and climate data interact with events in our solar system, because there also could be something more to do. So there's in Milan next week, we have also the opening of this new work. And all our research is always together. Also, we are doing bigger events with our networks of RIXC, of Renewable Futures, of Auge networks. So we do the conferences and festivals in Riga and exhibitions. And the outcome is usually the publications. So the most recent one is Green Revisited, Encountering Emerging Nature Cultures and Art and Research. So this is where you can find much more about this, our project. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Rasa. Yes, always very inspiring, your talk. So I come to our last speaker. It is Refik Anadol. And Refik Anadol is, yes, media artist, one of the most emerging media artists of today. And he's also director of the Refik Anadol Studios based in LA. And yes, Refik, he creates large-scale immersive installations, data sculptures, and also data installations. And he has a lot of experience to share how he uses AI to create data sets for media works with a collective memory. And right now, Refik is in Basel at the Art Basel, where he opened, I think it was yesterday, the multi-sensory projection of Glacier Dreams at the theater on the facade of the theater in Basel. So Refik, thanks so much for joining us, and we are more than curious to hear about your works and yes, also your recent experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Susa. So great to see everyone. Hello from Basel. Pretty intense experience. I wasn't expecting that there's not too much thing going on. It's only in Art Basel, I guess, in the classical world of art, things are relatively conventional. I didn't see any innovation. I didn't see so far so many people talking about technology or generative AI or beyond. So it's really sad, to be honest, not seeing the art world contributing. But I'm happy to say that public art, as you know, without tickets or apps or whatever's, it gets the best attention. So happy to say that public art is still very powerful when it comes to the connecting with people and the context. So I just want to quickly share my screen and then have, I think, 15 minutes to share the journey and want to highlight a couple of important projects. I hope you can see my screen. Yes, so I'm a media artist practicing almost 14 years as a media artist. I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey, where I got my first undergrad experiences. And I'm very grateful for Peter Weibel, who has been truly one of the mentor in my last years of undergrad and beginning of my first MFA. And during his actually workshops and other pure data, which is software that maybe many people are using, I think I coined the term data painting. It was 2008. And then since then, I started working with the VVVV, a software that I think helped me so much to work with data and beyond. And it also allowed me to learn computers very early ages. But I think my really media art and media architecture context comes from really the movie that I watched. I was 8 years old. Without knowing English, my cousin translate the movie. And I hope that he did a good job, because the movie was a very big inspiration to me. That is not just, as a child seeing a dystopia. I think I saw the utopia and the positivity and possibilities in the future of urban spaces. Actually, I think our verse with Susa also overlapped with this event, 2008. Then I was super deep diving into the idea of how to use media facades and media architecture. And I think this was a very important event for me, at least in my humble experience, that I also met with Lev Manovic, a hero, and now we are good friends and sharing a lot. So he was giving this incredible dialogue about, I think, what I'm doing right now. So this is the very first time I was using pure data, very early ages, but I was very excited to use V4 2008 on a media facade in Istanbul in a contemporary art center. And over the years, worked with different buildings and facades and transformed many different surfaces. But I think 2011, I was very first time able to speculate the idea of a data sculpture. Here, in collaboration with Alpert Boas, we were able to get the 3 days of data recordings of sound recordings of the street and transform it into a media facade. And then, of course, my research is not only just architecture or media facades, but I'm really inspired by the idea of connectivity between the humanity and how these physical and virtual worlds are colliding instantly and constantly. I mean, as Kiga said, I think I found that data is one of those experiences in our life that there's almost no way to from now on, I guess, for anyone living in the cities. Data became this fundamental thread through collective memories or collective dreams or consciousness and beyond. So in my practice, I really try to connect the discourse and context through understanding who we are and how we are becoming these new entities. And also I'm super inspired by the sense of displacement and specifically try to find ways of come together, then separate and become an individual in a boring TV on our face. So the hope behind me has really became this much more challenging question is really what does it really mean to be a human in the 21st century? Because if I can understand it, perhaps I can apply this enter into a journey of like many works. Join UCLA Design Media Arts Department and work with very closely Christian Moller and Jennifer Steinkamp, Rebecca Mendes, but most importantly, Casey Rias. Thanks to him, I started also programming in Java with processing 11 years ago, and then really deep dive into the idea of data paintings and sculptures. So now we are 20 people as a studio, can speak 15 languages and 10 countries in a small space. And our mostly focus is, you can see maybe in this choppy video, like truly embed media arts into architecture. Last 9 years, our mostly focus was truly embedding media arts into architecture, but also try to find ways of activate surfaces, spaces, public spaces, hospitals, schools, and airports, places that I don't believe art was instantly and constantly needed. And then did many performances in public, in institutions such as LA Philharmonic, SF Symphony, and beyond. And that really allowed us to go to be more in depth in the performing arts. But I think most important events for me was be able to work with my heroes. I love architecture so much. I'm not an architect, but I respect and I love some of my heroes, such as Frank Gehry, Zaha Hadid, and Gaudi. And I'm very happy to say that last several years, I was able to work on their facades. And also what was really important in my practice is working with data is something, but I was never inspired by data visualizations or like try to narrate data into more understandable charts or, that kind of very scientific context. But I was much more inspired by the idea of data is a form of memory, and this memory can take any shape and form. And that's where I start like exploring from a very didactic to very abstract worlds of visualizations. I think what was really inspired me so much is this idea of like demystification of algorithms and sometimes show our process and share as much as honest and open, which sometimes artists do not need to do that. But I think in my practice, what was very also important, 2016, February, 7 years ago, I was the first artist in resident at Google. And it was a very powerful point to me because now 7 years with AI, as you may guess, like a 70 years. And this project, in my opinion, is, for me at least, one of the most important media arts, media architecture, like embedding AI into a built environment context. And for this project, thanks to also Blaise Agari Arcas of Google, and he was pretty much predicting that one day AI will take over many disciplines. So my practice was inspired by the library of Babel, and then we proposed this idea of like using this, I hope one day every single data exists in a public space. And we created this immersive environment in a library, which is a publicly open data, publicly open free library. And the concept was, if a machine can learn, can it dream or hallucinate? So my understanding that this project is still one of the early example, I put the first example of embedding media arts into architecture through AI in a functionally using the building's data and transform the surface of this building or environments into both physical and virtual, both in VR and AR and XR, and also witness real time in a library where we, I hope, learn the reality. And that is where I start to speculate about the idea of, if a machine can learn, can it hallucinate? So last 7 years, our research as a studio is focused on latent space, specifically how a machine can store this information and how we can interact with this space. The machine hallucination studies were, again, now 7 years, looks like a very ancient AI model. But back in time, the DC GAN and GAN algorithms were very helpful to me to understand what AI can learn and how it can create constant realities. And of course, to me, if an AI one day can create a pigment, I don't believe this pigment should dry. So last 10 years, I'm very obsessed with fluid dynamics, but specifically 7 years. And during my Google residency, I started developing many fluid dynamic contexts with many different types of AI models. So also I'm inspired by the lower dimension reduction, specifically looking at large data sets and how they are represented by AI and how these data universes are appearing in front of us. And look for many heroes from the Rumi, Persian poets of 19 languages of Masnavi or Mozart's every single music. We have pretty much no bias here, I guess. I can clearly share that. But it was a very beautiful research on how actually AI can perceive our humanity, how we can hear and see and beyond. So this became another like a research for understanding. So last 7 years, we download more than 4 billion images. As far as I know, it may be the largest data ever collected for an artist studio. And we only look one thing, collective memories. We never focus personal data. We never focus like something like have a password. We only look at things that I hope belongs to everyone. And these topics mostly culture, nature, urban, and space. We look at the cities, we look at like nature in general. And I think the topic of this today probably is where I want to show our nature projects. Also very grateful for many, many partnerships between NVIDIA, Google,
Now we cannot hear you anymore. Yes, you can hear. Oh, yes.
So I think in overall embedding media arts to me also became projection mapping or projection installations across the world, and did many, many forms of this. And just coming back to the, I think, urban projections, coming back to like very early ages of undergrad years, I didn't lose my connection with public space and try to create installations such as like, Frank Gehry's Disney Hall in this context, and a second MFA project. And we were able to transform the iconic building, cultural beacon of Los Angeles, by using 100 years of every single data exist in the LA Philharmonic archives. And thanks to Frank Gehry, we transformed his iconic facade into a kind of a living skin, as he says. And this was a very important project, 2018. I think this really put us on the map, and specifically, I think, allowed us to really look for the context of public arts, and especially free, open for everyone, and transform the building as an entity that can remember or somehow hallucinate and dream. And of course, this project went beyond. We did the Zaha Hadid project in Seoul, DDP, and we received a very, very positive reactions around the world about public art. Also, Zaha Hadid collaboration became real in the same building. We were able to use entire Zaha Hadid architects archive and also explore almost 1.5 years ago, before generative AI was right now, let's say, very, very relevant, but with Patrick Schumacher and the Zaha Hadid architects, we were very much early having access DALL-E 2, and way before ChatGPT, we were able to explore tools thanks to OpenAI almost 1.5 years ago. And my heavy, deep inspiration for nature didn't stop, and in pandemic also deep dive into the public data set. Coral images. And what was really important in this project was World Economic Forum allowed us to work with UN Ocean Preservation Team, and these images are turning into 3-dimensional models to be used underwater. I think this is also like a part of our research with researchers to turn our know-how into a practical tools to be used for ecologically important topics that we can be helpful. And right now in Art Basel, thanks to Hans-Ulrich Obrist, a mentor and a hero, this is a special project about glaciers. And I have been doing my very best, like last several years, to dedicate our research to preserve information about nature. Clearly, activism in certain contexts didn't work. Rules and regulations didn't work. None of those, like I'm seeing any simple like movement. The needle is not moving. I went to the COP and many beyond. I saw no any clear action, or So I thought that perhaps we need a different tone, a new dialogue, a new maybe positive context, and take the attention of the public through maybe these new art forms. So I'm happy to say that I think quantifiably we are getting more attention to the topic than finger pointing or like, you know, making some unfortunately undesirable activism to the art forms and unfortunately creating a hate didn't work. But in our context, we are now creating this Iceland, Antarctica, and Greenland research, and we are allowing ourselves to do this deep research and then turn into this new AI research. Perhaps we can educate and train the humanity about the urgency of like why corals are, why glaciers are important, and somehow in our long journey collide all of this research into a meaningful and a purposeful research. Oh, by the way, 2 weeks ago, we were in Barcelona. If you were in somehow, we were able to also use ecologically data from the Gaudi's Casa Batlló. And in real time, we were able to augment the building by using the weather data, the wind, the rain, and weather conditions. And then this turned into a performance. It was really super inspiring to see 65,000 people coming together. And I hope you can watch online. It's very soon I'll be putting the documentation. But what I want to say is it was so powerful to see people coming together, celebrate the building, the Gaudi, the legacy of Gaudi. And I'm happy to say that this medium is so powerful and so special. And I still love to be on the streets and instead of a ticket and like whatever, like that kind of, you know, private experience of life. Of course, both is necessary, but being on the streets is so powerful. So finally, all these experiences last 9 years, I'm very grateful for the world that we are exploring. And now we took our challenge and transform our focus to a new museum, which we call it Dataland. It will be opening in Los Angeles first in a Frank Gehry, hopefully, building. And we are practicing new idea about this preserving information around the world in this new museum. It's not a place for a classical medium. It's a place for, I guess, AI dreams or hallucinations. And our first partners are actually very deeply inspiring people from Yavanava family. And they are also well known maybe for cinema industry. They inspired the Avatar, the movie of James Cameron. To me, they are so special because they are living in rainforests. So our next topic is rainforest, but instead of dumping images online or making a boring product or service with these AI tools, we decided to make much more impactful and purposeful things. And we are working with the family very, very closely and understanding and learning who they are and what they need. Actually, they did nothing, by the way. They are so happy. They live 120 years. They don't have a cancer, dementia, or Alzheimer's or any COVID deaths. They are the most happy people on earth. But we still have like great dialogues and conversations. By the way, and it's not like a simple AI research at home dumping images by having a coffee. It's actually a deep research in the jungles of rainforests around the world. I'm very happy to share this project hopefully next year. And this will be an AI research dedicated to humanity, and we will open source and unveil these AI models to the scientists working in flora and fauna. I think it will be one of
And I hope you can hear me. Is it okay? You can hear me? Yes, we are already a bit late, but I would say let's at least collect 2 or 3 questions for our speakers. So if any one of you has an urgent question, please feel welcome to ask it now. Either it is here at Weimar, at the Bauhaus-Universität, or online. So now it's the time to ask your questions. And thank you so much, Refik. Is there anything we can hear? So I think you just unmute yourself if you want to ask a question. And
hello.
Yeah,
hello.
Okay. Hello.
I have a question. Thank you for the speaker. What you would suggest starting with large data sets for like new media artists that don't have so much experience in those large models and all that techie stuff? Thank you.
For whom was the question?
You heard me?
Okay. Oh, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Where to start? Maybe from existing ones. If you have no experience yet, it can be interesting to see a lot of projects share the data sets they've worked with. We definitely do that. And experience there. Recording is stopping and in progress. But I think, yeah, I hope I made myself clear. I would start with existing ones and also see, knowing what your question is, see how big the data set is that you think you need. Sometimes it's better to use a smaller sample and first try with that and then maybe scale up from there. That would be my advice.
Can I ask what you mean with the existing data? You mean publicly available data?
Yeah. For example, many projects with their research also publish or share the data set they used. Sometimes you can also really look at, for instance, in our case, when we work with publicly available data, it can be that you're looking at particular, or that you're interested in looking at particular urban data, considering the theme of this group. Then there might be open data sets, even of your municipality, that could be interesting to work with. So you don't always have to start collecting yourself, but really looking at which ones are already made available. Yeah.
I would also ask a question on one hand, as we called our symposium Nature Data Narratives, how important is it for you to start with an actual, how can I say, physical excursion and observation in the nature as a inhabited, as a real physical environment? What does it make for you when you generate this data and be there in the nature? What is the impact of it for your artistic work? Question, I would say, to Rasa. She does a lot going into nature, but maybe also for Sabine as an action researcher.
Okay, I can briefly start and Sabine can continue. So, well, always the data is so interesting that you actually, I realized also the scientists who are working with the nature, they say they go and spend less and less time in the forest because they are very happy to follow them even in real time or reading later what the data have been of their monitorings. Yeah, so they're saying, oh great, I don't have to go to forest again. But at the same time, but for artists also answering the previous question. So I and me and writers, we only work with the data when we have first idea. And this idea is very important if you sense the environment. If you work with nature environment, it's good to sense. Even if there is not much to sense, sometimes it's very, very quiet can be, and very, very boring in terms of visual or sound materials. But still, this is very different experience. And this, I think, and from this also the idea what you want to show can emerge only when you have been there in the environments. I think for artists, even more important.
Okay, yes. Thanks a lot. And maybe one last question to Ilana, if she still is with us. Ilana, your projects are really, yes, very large scale in the public space. How do you reach your audience? Is there any strategies you would like to share with us?
I think we take a very varied technique. And I think the most important thing that I've come to learn is that as we present new work, we're building new relationships with different communities. And it's really important that as the project comes to an end, that the relationships continue. Wonderful example of that is we did this wonderful skateboard activation, including a series of skatable sculptures and a whole season of programming around skating as an act of resistance, skating industry. And when the sculptures went away, the skaters stayed because we had made them feel welcome and we'd made them feel part of the process. And I think that's really important just generally as a technique for reaching audiences. But I will say that what I have come to find is that if you can draw a connection between the work and the place, I find that the audience actually really responds in a very genuine way. And to this question about how your research relates to place, where you draw inspiration from place, but also how you then present in a way that is compatible with place and that feels holistic and of the environment. To me, that it helps your audiences to see the place anew and to develop new relationships with it, which ultimately helps them to build longstanding relationships with the space as well.
Yes, thank you very much. Very good. So I really want to thank you all speakers for your contribution. And I think it was so interesting to see all the power of urban digital arts for climate action from the different perspectives. It was really wonderful to have seen all your contribution. Thank you. And now we are a bit late. We will go on to our next part, to the Artathon, a co-creation workshop with different sub-themes to which you have subscribed. At this moment, I will give Carolina again the word. She will let us know how we will go on and what are the next steps for your co-creation in the workshops. Okay, thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Now we start the, we start the Artathon, so we start the workshops in groups. So we can show the next slide just to explain to you that we have 5 challenges. Here on site in Weimar, we have only one, it's the Cohabitation City and Nature, hosted and facilitated by Paul and Zara. And online, we have 4 options. The first one is public virtual realities with Katarina being the facilitator. RTDs and creative placemaking with Anahita, eco data, visualization of environmental data is with Irem. And the last one, climate colonization, exploitation of resources and nature for human belonging, is the facilitator is IPEC. So very soon, I think in some seconds, you'll be able to join a breakout session. So I ask the online participants to please find your room and join, and maybe get some water or go to the bathroom very quickly so we can start the group work. And here in person, I would suggest that we have a 3-4 minutes break so we can get some water and go to the bathroom and then come back and start the group work. Okay. And we have the group work, the Artathon, until 4. So we go back online at 4 to see all the presentations. Thank you. Here we will have 2 groups. Yes. And the last information that we have an award for 3 awards of 500 euros for the participants. So in the end, the ideas that you have here, you can submit to us, and we will select 3 of the projects to help the idea to develop. Yes. So please join your room online, and here we have a 3-4 minutes break so we can feel more comfortable. Yes, please, everyone, if you didn't find your breakout room yet, it's in the bottom of the Zoom window. And so on the, like really on the kind of the end of the page, you can see breakout sessions and you have 4 options. So please do it as soon as possible.